We live in an age where a giant robot movie doesn't seem all that special. Thanks to over a decade of Transformers movies and the excellent Pacific Rim, the novelty of getting a giant robot movie that takes itself seriously is lost on modern audiences. But there was a time when fans of giant robots had to make do with cartoons and cartoons alone. Thankfully, one man came along and changed all that with a giant robot movie that would end up as the final release of a filmmaking empire. And this director deserves far more appreciation than he gets today for blazing a trail in giant robot cinema. I'm Drew Deitch, and more appropriately than ever, this is Giant Freakin Robot diving into the failure and redemption of Robot Jox. Director Stuart Gordon.
I've always liked horror movies. I mean, ever since my parents, refused to let me see them.
Best known for his H.P. Lovecraft adaptations Re-Animator.
Do you agree that he's dead now?
And From Beyond.
Turn it off. Edward, shut it off.
Was a fan of animated series like the popular Transformers and the influential anime Macross. And he always wanted someone to make a live-action giant robot movie. So once no one else stepped up to the plate, he set his sights on Robot Jox, a story about a divided future where disputes between the two remaining great nations are settled with gladiatorial robot fights. Gordon teamed with sci-fi author Joe Haldeman, who had won a Hugo Award for his novel The Forever War, a science fiction riff on Haldeman's own experiences during his deployment in Vietnam.
I was not trying to write an autobiographical novel, but only to use my own combat experience as a sort of structure for a science fiction novel.
And this would end up being one of the first factors that would lead to Robot Jox's many eventual problems. Haldeman and Gordon would butt heads on the tone of the story, with Gordon leaning towards things being more cartoonish and fun.
You ain't using my DNA to make no doobies.
While Haldeman wanted to explore some of the darker and more complex aspects of the idea.
Juby, workout's over! It isn't over until one of us is defeated.
They knew they had to meet somewhere in the middle, but that wasn't necessarily where audiences wanted to be with a giant robot movie. We'll come back to that later. More important to the bigger picture of Robot Jox is the story of Empire Pictures, the low-budget genre studio from longtime producer Charles Band.
Back when I was making these pictures in the late 70s, early 80s, there weren't any other horror or science fiction films being made. Just a handful of people. Roger Corman made a few, but the major studios were making different kinds of films.
Empire Pictures churned out tons of sci-fi and horror cult classics in the 1980s, including The Ghoulies, who made their way onto our own list of 1980s creature feature gems. But by the time Robot Jox spun up cameras in 1986, Empire Pictures was at the end of their rope. In fact, they pretty much put all their remaining eggs into the Robot Jox basket, and it ended up being the final film produced under the Empire Pictures banner. Even then, the finished film had to be sold to another distributor in order to get things to the finish line, and the movie didn't get a full release until 1990.
Get ready for Robot Jox, rated PG.
It's rare a long road to the screen like that helps a movie. Another element that added to the post-production stress was Stuart Gordon having to run to one studio to finish putting Robot Jox together in editing.
The Italian crew, they looked at it as we were creating art. They would call me maestro. I mean, that was a lovely thing. And so I had a great time there.
And another studio, headed by none other than Mickey Mouse. During the time he was getting Robot Jox ready, Gordon was in the development stage of Teeny Weenies, yes, that was the actual title, a Disney sci-fi family comedy about kids who get shrunk.
I shrunk the kids.
What?
And the Thompson kids, too. They're about this big. They're in the backyard.
What?
Threw them out with the trash.
Yes, Stuart Gordon was one of the original story developers behind what would become Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And this was not a fond period for Gordon. It was the first time he worked with a big Hollywood studio, and he famously had no patience for all the Disney bigwigs. Gordon claimed that he got a nosebleed during a business meeting just from the stress of dealing with the corporate drudgery that was being applied to art. It was so bad that Gordon left Honey, I Shrunk the Kids before it rolled cameras, and he never felt he could deal with any big studio ever again.
I have already killed you right here.
He remained an independent filmmaker for the rest of his career, and though doing so didn't make Stuart Gordon a household name, it meant he got to prioritize creativity in his work, leading to a diverse and compelling filmography. So that whole business is going on while Robot Jox is also on his plate. Yes, Robot Jox was the original film title, but in the time it took to get the full film together, RoboCop was unleashed into movie theaters, and the distributor felt they needed to change the title to not seem connected. Poor Stuart just couldn't catch a break, could he? He even liked to tell people that the T in Robot Jox is silent and still privately called the movie Robot Jox even after it was all done. So let's actually take a look at some of the things Robot Jox actually did have going in its favor, like legendary designer Ron Cobb, who sci-fi fans instantly recognize as one of the key designers behind Alien. Cobb's overall design for the two featured giant robots really gives the whole production a level up. It doesn't hurt that Empire Pictures' behind-the-scenes mainstay David Allen lends his stop-motion talents to the big battles. Though we only get book-ended robot fights, it's forgivable when the effects are so fun. Still, anyone wanting more Robot Jox in Robot Jox has a valid criticism towards the movie. And though it's certainly on a B-movie budget, the sci-fi world of Robot Jox does tell you a good deal about the kind of society civilization now resembles after a devastating nuclear world war. Gordon even took advantage of a real ad campaign in Rome encouraging women to get pregnant. That seems like some weird Handmaid's Tale prop, and Gordon recognized it would lend the world of Robot Jox a seemingly larger thematic scope. And though Gordon wanted the movie to be fun, he also wanted to take it seriously. He and his team did research by spending time at an Air Force base in order to nail down certain military lingo and procedures.
Watch the battle on those screens or check hardware status on those readouts. Doc Matsumoto here does the technical stuff. I handle the tactics.
And Gordon cites The Right Stuff, the brilliant film adaptation of Tom Wolfe's landmark history of the U.S. space program, as his biggest cinematic influence for what he wanted to do with the movie. That commitment to the film's belief in itself imbues Robot Jox with a lot of charm. However, remember that whole issue of warring tones in the story due to Gordon and Haldeman's different takes on the material? Robot Jox can't quite settle into the right kind of rhythm for what audiences expected out of a movie called Robot Jox. The opening credits miniature sequence, which was the first thing shot for the movie, looks fantastic, but sets up a darker experience than parents and kids were wanting from a big robot fight flick. And the inciting incident for the story is the death of an innocent crowd during a robot fight. It's a great conflict for the movie's hero, Achilles, but it also feels like a potential walkout moment for parents who brought their kids to see a live-action cartoon. There's other shiny spots in Robot Jox, like Michael Aldridge as over-the-top American stereotype Tex Conway, who Gordon says was directly inspired by Ronald Reagan.
Soil is just dirt. All the rest of the team is dead.
It's a goofy but pleasant piece of acting, But the performance of the movie belongs to Danny Kamakona as Dr. Matsumoto. Seeing someone give such weight to a tragic role in a movie like Robot Jox is always worth highlighting. Sadly, no actor or ad campaign could save Robot Jox at the box office. Opening in 16th place on a budget Gordon claims was $6.5 million. Robot Jox barely eked out over $1 million. Thanks to an extensive time getting to the screen amidst the dissolution of Empire Pictures, it was dead in the water. Though it ended up finding its audience on home video, it would be many years before it established itself as a cult film. Stuart Gordon didn't make Robot Jox simply to capitalize on a trend or exploit audiences looking for some escapism. Stuart Gordon made Robot Jox because he wanted to see a live-action giant robot movie as a fan. He loved the genre and the imagination it brought to stories. And the failure of Robot Jox did end up being something of a black mark against him in Hollywood. But history is the only true judge, and Stuart Gordon is now a revered figure in genre movie circles. In addition to his embrace by the horror movie community, sci-fi aficionados have discovered the pleasures in his movies Space Truckers, a light adventure in the mold of Robot Jox, and the must-see Fortress. Seriously, Fortress gets even more off-the-wall anime influence, and it's like the best RoboCop movie that has nothing to do with RoboCop. Imagine what the prisons in RoboCop are like, and it's probably Fortress. Stuart Gordon passed away in 2020 at the age of 72. And though Robot Jox might have been a failure at first, Gordon's legacy has given the movie new life and even new fans. From the silly to the serious, Robot Jox offers something you can find to enjoy. And if you're the kind of person who can't find the joy in a giant robot with a chainsaw coming out of its, then we might just be two polar opposite people. Have you seen Robot Jox? If so, let us know your review in the comments. If you haven't, did this video get you curious about seeing it or checking out more Stuart Gordon movies? Give the video a like if it did. And if you'd enjoy a deeper dive into Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, check out the Genre Vision episode I did wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure to subscribe to this channel so we can keep bringing you videos like this. Thanks for watching. I'm Drew Deitch, and we'll catch you later here on Giant Freakin Robot.
I'm gonna kick your ass!